In war or in peace, their life is a daily toil. They're living from hand to mouth. Firewood is almost their only domestic commodity. Charcoal, their best refined energy source. But poverty-stricken Darfurians should have aspired for more. Geology shows their land could be floating on a gigantic oil lake. As early as the 70s, Western oil giants US Chevron and French Total uncovered sedimentary basins in Darfur believed to contain oil. Darfur, it's established now, is where the Central African and the East African shear zones meet. These geological formations are responsible for the oil-rich sedimentary basins of southern Sudan and Chad. Today, a Chinese-made pipeline is transporting oil from the Sudanese side to the Red Sea for exportation to China, while a $4 billion pipeline by Exxon and Chevron is taking Chadian oil to the Atlantic shore for exportation to the US. To the north lie Al Kufra Basin and other Libyan oil fields. Darfur, a mostly desert area, landlocked and far from the sea. But it is no longer a forgotten region. All this land is now divided into oil concessions, with more than 20 international companies fiercely competing over it. Just to the south, the Chinese are drilling the first oil wells in Darfur. The Chinese are the largest investor in Sudan's oil today, a place once held by the United States. Some think oil is an underlying factor behind the superpowers' interest in Darfur conflict.
The area perspective for oil is exactly the region where there is conflict now, specifically the region of Darfur, southern Libya and northern Chad. This is where the battle of tomorrow is going to happen between major oil companies, particularly between Europeans, Chinese and Americans.
On the local level, oil has become a rallying cry. With oil in mind, the rebels demanded a share of the national wealth as a condition for peace. The world superpowers locking horns in Africa for energy resources are believed capable of being a part of the region's problems or its solutions, depending on where their interests lie. And in this cold arithmetic of benefit and loss, innocent civilians continue to suffer. Mohammed Val, Al Jazeera, Darfur.
Well, to discuss this more, we're joined now live from New York by Sara Flounders. She's the co-director of the International Action Center, which was set up by former U.S. Attorney General Ramsey Clark. Ms. Flounders, thank you very much for your time. Just very basically off the top, oil, problem or solution for Darfur, given all this international interest?
Well, oil is certainly the cause of U.S. interest, threats, sanctions, and possible very dangerous intervention in Darfur today, yes.
What role, though, does oil play in the actual Darfur conflict?
Well, there are vast quantities of oil in Darfur, and this is well known, and in many places in Sudan. The estimates have been increasing as new wells and the pipeline now functioning. All of this shows a growing possibilities and interest for Sudan as a whole. There's also natural gas, uranium, gold. Sudan is enormously rich in resources, and as Western corporate powers have become conscious about that, the struggle to control the region and also to divide the region, to set people against people, to flood it with military weapons, and the calls in the UN, the resolutions and all of that. The whole campaign coming from Washington is for intervention in Darfur as a way of controlling the resources of Darfur.
So really, with all that mineral wealth that is there, it should really put the region in a very strong position. Do you see that eventuating over many years to come, or do you think it'll be taken advantage of in the end?
Well, really, the only solution for the famine and drought that is having a real impact in Darfur and across Sudan and across northern Africa is development of the resources, which the people of the entire region have the right to share in. And the struggle, when the U.S. talks about and pushes for intervention in many different forms, whether it's international trials, whether it's UN forces intervening, we can see that from the horror, the destruction in Iraq, what U.S. intervention means. And at the same time, it's so easy to see what development in Sudan could be. The largest country of Africa, the richest in resources, with fertile land, that development could make a difference not only for Sudan, but for all of Africa. It's strategically located. Sudan is larger than all of Western Europe combined. Darfur is larger than Iraq or France. Extremely large, rich, potentially rich area where development could make a great difference, and where war, intervention, occupation will mean hunger for the entire, destruction for the entire region.
So just finally, who do you see playing the biggest role in Darfur's future? And the reason I say that, I know we've been talking about the US a lot, but China is a very big player as well.
Well, actually, China is the one country that has helped to bring both the oil wells and the pipeline online, so that Sudan is able to reap the potential benefits from the resources they have. On the other hand, it's U.S. sanctions on Sudan that were an effort to stop and strangle that development until it was firmly under U.S. corporate control. So the Chinese help in building the pipeline has been very helpful and important for Sudan and its future development. And that kind of development can make a big difference in Sudan, whereas the military intervention and the sanctions, the efforts to strangle and divide Sudan would mean poverty for the entire nation.
Sara Flounders from the International Action Center in New York.